If you see your child is dysregulated, the chances are that it's actually you that is dysregulated and not spending enough time with them. Now, let me explain. I'm Daniel James, personal trainer, nutritionist, life coach, 10 years in the military. Now, yesterday's video, I was diving into habits and understanding why we might be reactive, why we have bad habits, good habits, etc. So today's video, and I mentioned it towards the end of yesterday's video, so if you haven't seen it, maybe I can put a video up here or I'll put a link below to go and check it out. But I started talking about, in order for you to improve your habits, you really have to get into the root cause issues. Now, one of the reasons why I'm smiling, I literally just recorded this whole video and realized there was no audio on. So this is take two. So yesterday I mentioned about you kind of have three different layers, but at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you about a fourth layer that I don't hear any experts talking about. So make sure you stay tuned for the end of the video. So the first layer is what we call inner child work. Now, I don't know who came up with it, but it's a lot of psychologists talk about inner child work. Okay. The next layer is inner shadow work, which was famously coined by Carl Jung. People like Jordan Peterson talk about it a lot. And then you have a layer called internal family systems or parts work. And you have people like Dr. Jerry Crete, who wrote a book called Litanies of the Heart, which I'm currently reading. Fantastic book. He's a psychologist, but talks about it from a Catholic lens. You also have someone called Sarah Baldwin, who does phenomenal work on it as well. And then the final framework, I'm going to talk a little bit about projection, mirroring, and inner shadow and how it shows up throughout our life. So when we start off on this self-healing, self-discovery journey, trying to become better, trying to get to the root cause issue of our habits, one of the first things you need to ask yourself is, where did you first learn this habit? Where did it first come about? And most habits are some form of coping mechanism, some form of comforting, some form of giving us dopamine, serotonin, or oxytocin when we're feeling overwhelmed, when we're feeling stressed. And sometimes it can even be, if we're doing well in life and we're looking at leveling up, it can come in as a bit of a deterrent to stop you from leveling up. But that gets into spiritual warfare, the devil, demons, etc. And we won't go into that this video. If you want to know more about that, I did a video about spiritual warfare. But if you want to learn more about how the devil and demons, knock us off before we level up, let me know in the comments, and maybe I can do that next week. So when we come to inner child work, I was just double checking my microphone's recording, so I'm not about to go into it again. When we talk about inner child work, it's understanding that we all go through life and there's lowercase t traumas that happen to us. They tend to be habits or routine things that happen to us on a regular basis, and they impact our self-worth, our inner critic, our inner voice, and how we view ourselves in the world. And then now you have uppercase or capitalized T trauma, which is often seen as a big event, whether it's sexual abuse, whether it's a physical issue, some big event that has knocked you and, changed the chemistry in your brain on how you view yourself, how you view the world, how your nervous system acts in certain situations and scenarios. Now, I'm just going to give a quick example that you can take away with you to use if you want to dive more into inner child work. Now, a little bit of a heads up or disclaimer, I'm not a clinical psychologist. I'm just someone who's very passionate about self-development, health and well-being, trying to become a better man, husband, and father, and helping those men around me and anyone who's watching this video. So if you start going into inner child work and it becomes very emotional, very deep, I will say it now as a disclaimer. I encourage you to find specialist help because it can be quite triggering, bringing these emotions back up. Now, before you get into inner child work, you need to stop and think to yourself about the habit or about the inner critic, the inner voice. And you need to ask yourself, where does it come from? And who said it? So feel free to pause this video, write it down if you are doing this as we're going through it. Write it down and really start to understand, where did this event come from? Where did this reoccurring situation, habit, routine take place? Or maybe if it's an inner critic, whose voice is it that's saying those things to you? Now, when you start to understand this, you can start to pinpoint a time in your life that you can go back to. Now, before we go back to the specific event, you want to come up with a safe space. So when you're doing this exercise, you'll normally sit down, either in kneeling or cross-legged, just in a position where you feel comfortable. Don't do this when you're driving or walking. I mean, when you're walking, you could maybe think about it, but I encourage you to sit down, eyes closed, and really open up your heart, soul, and mind to this exercise. So you need to come up with a safe space. So for me, it was my grandparents' house. That was the place where I always felt accepted. I always felt loved. I felt like I could be myself around my grandparents. Now, I want you to visualize going back to that place. So you're now an adult walking back into the front door, or it might be a park bench, it might be a woods, it might be a hiding spot, whatever it may be. But for this, I'm going to talk about my grandparents' house. So I would often visualize myself walking through the front door. You're then going to imagine the feelings you had. So the comfort, the safety, the protection. When you've sat with that for a few moments, you're then going to invite the child to come into this safe space. Now, it might be the child that comes to mind. It might be a different child. If it's a different child, I encourage you to lean into it and go with it, because they might be in more need of you to help them. And it will make sense as we go through the exercise. So now, when this child has entered in, you explain to them, and obviously it's all in your head. Yeah, it's all metaphysical, subconscious, etc. But you just explain to them, I'm the older version of you. I'm here to protect you, to help you. Can we, ask them to invite you back to that event? So now there's multiple lenses you can go to this event in. The first lens is a POV, so remembering it first person. So you'll go back to that event or situation and remember how it was as an experience, how it made you feel. Now, the second one, you're going to go back as an observer. So as your adult self, you're going to go back and observe the event or the situation enrolling. Now, the third lens, you're going to invite the child to come with you. So you and that child are going to go back and observe that situation or event. And throughout this one, you're going to be talking to your inner child. You're going to be reassuring them that they're okay, they're safe now. You are the adult that is going to protect them. You are the adult that will take care of them. And that you, as the adult, make decisions. You don't let the inner child make decisions or be reactive to a partner. And it will become more clear as we go through this video. And then the final lens, which I think everyone misses, or most people miss, I went back to the event and I invited Jesus to come with me. Now, I know a lot of you are going to be like, oh, he's saying Jesus, he's a religious guy, switch off. Okay, if that's how you react, I would encourage you to investigate that. Why are you so reactive to me saying the name Jesus? But if you want to carry on the video, feel free to replace Jesus with higher being, whatever you resonate with. For me, it's a Jesus. That was is a living person that I can talk to and invite in to heal, help me heal. So that is the essence of inner child work. You would then bring that child back into the safe space. You would tell them they're safe now, they can stay here, and that you will come back to visit. But this is where they are now. We don't live in that old event or that old routine situation. We've allowed that to go. We've let it go. We need to heal and move forward. Now, someone who talks about this quite a lot is Dr. Gabor Mate. He talks about trauma, a little bit about inner child work and understanding how it passes on the generations. So, go have a look at him. Now, the next one, inner shadow work. This was famously brought to light by Carl Jung, and then more recently by Jordan Peterson, who's a big advocate for Carl Jung. Now, Carl Jung talks about the inner shadow. He talks about the ego and the subconscious. So now we're going that level deeper. This is the more spiritual, more metaphysical, the more symbolic language, I guess, because a lot of people don't resonate with inner shadow. So he talks about the subconscious, the inner shadow being that darkness, that thing we hold on to, and one day we will be confronted by it. And that's often where men have midlife crisis or crises. Now, if you imagine the inner shadow is this big shadow behind us or a big bag that we're walking along, everything that we do throughout life, all key events get put in this bag. And most of the time we hold on to the negative, the traumatic, the impactful events that impact our nervous system, our brains, our soul. And over time, that bag's getting heavier and heavier. And when you dive into the subconscious and inner shadow work, it's all about trying to go into that bag, take up an event and release it. And now you can see how that ties really closely with inner child work. Now, the third framework I'm going to talk about, and this is internal family systems. And I said it at the beginning, I'm not a specialist in any of these, but I have gone into inner child work, inner shadow work, and now going into internal family systems and parts work. So if you want to learn more, maybe I'll put it in the description, just a little link or reference to each specialist on inner child work, inner shadow work, and internal family systems. So for internal family systems, I encourage you to go and look at Dr. Jerry Crete and his book, Litanies of the Heart, fantastic book, or Sarah Baldwin. She's done a lot of podcasts on this. But this is similar to inner child work and a little bit similar to inner shadow work. But it talks about how our body, our subconscious, our nervous system, and our soul basically creates inner parts to try and protect itself. So if you imagine you had a key event happen to you when you were 7 years old, that would create a part. Then you have a protector part that would try and protect that inner child. Or you'd have a firefighter part that would try and deal with issues that are coming up. You have manager parts, you have multiple parts. And this is where, as we go through life, you end up with multiple parts in your subconscious that would come to the forefront. So anytime your child or your spouse would talk to you a certain way, it would be your part that would be reacting. Now, your internal family system, your internal self, is trying to bring all those parts together, is trying to heal them. But yeah, it's fantastic framework. Like I said, I'm reading the book at the moment, really enjoying it. Maybe I'll put a link down to the Amazon or something below. But now the final framework. So before we get into it, I just want you to understand that we all project ourselves onto our loved ones. So at the beginning, I spoke about if you see your child is dysregulated, maybe you yourself are dysregulated. And what I mean by that is if I'm busy doing work and my son keeps pestering me because he wants to hang out, that's where I need to have the humility, the ability to zone out and think, how much quality present time have I been spending with him? Because he doesn't care about business. He doesn't care about work, money, nothing. He just wants time with his dad or his mum. And that's where you can take him to play dates, you can take him to hang out with his friends, but he will still be dysregulated because you and your wife are the primary relationships and the connection that he needs to have. And this is where, if we go throughout our life, if I see my wife upset and responding or reacting to me in a way, I need to stop myself and think, how have I been showing up for her? How have I given my wife a place of safety? Have I been anchored? Have I been grounded in such a way that I can show up for her and hold her capacity, hold her emotions, and support her lovingly? And if I can't do that, then I need to reflect that back to myself. Now, the final framework I want to get to. So I see my wife as a mirror because we're in a covenant, we're in a contract, we're in a relationship where we're peers and we talk to one another. So she's a mirror. Now, my children, I imagine them as mini shadows on legs in the physical world. So as they're growing up, they're going to say things, do things that is going to fundamentally impact me in such a way. So before I was a father, I struggled to relate to my own dad. And we had a rocky relationship, as most father-son relationships do. We had a rocky relationship because I couldn't relate to him. I couldn't empathize with him. I couldn't understand what it means to be a dad. Now, when my first son was born, so many times I would find myself reacting in a way that my dad would have, or reacting in a way that my mother would have. And then I'm confronted with a choice. Do I want to carry on that behavior, or do I want to learn, interject, and respond in a way that is maybe healthier, maybe more knowledgeable, has more wisdom, kinder, loving, whatever it may be? Now, if you don't do that, you will get stuck. And if you imagine you have your wife as a mirror bouncing things back to you, you have one child or multiple children as little shadows confronting you. And this is where, if you don't have the humility or the ability to stop, reflect, and go inwards and do that healing, you will get stuck and you'll be confronted with an inner shadow because you project onto them and they bounce it back to you. And it's only when you can then stop, reflect, and do the inner child, inner shadow, or internal parts work that you can learn from it and progress forwards. Because as your children get older, they're going to be bouncing more things back to you. I'm going to stop the video here because I understand this is quite in-depth. If you want me to go into one of the systems a little bit more, or you want to learn more about this stuff, then like, comment below. I said it throughout the video, but as a disclaimer, a lot of this work can bring up a lot of strong emotions, things you never dealt with. So, if it starts to get difficult and you're not in a safe environment or you've never done this before, I encourage you to pause and get clinical help or specific help. Reach out to someone. Even if you were to drop a comment below, connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm not really on Instagram. I have got an Instagram on there, but connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to try and help, but I'm not a specialist. I can't fully hold space for you virtually and dive into the inner traumas and wounds. Now, one thing I have been developing over the last few months, for anyone who doesn't know, I run a men's community here in Vietnam where I live, and I teach jiu-jitsu. And I've worked with men for the best part of 2 decades. Now, a lot of them understand things, but they need further guidance and further prompting on how to come back home, how to come back to themselves. Now, I've been developing an app called The Way Home, and it's an app which is all about live journaling, but you get actions to take, you get reflections, and it's an area where you can really start to build good habits and understand yourself on a deeper level. I'll put a link in the description of this video so you can sign up. The first 30 days is completely free, and then it's £10 a month. If you don't like it, all I ask is give me feedback and feel free to cancel at any time. Yeah, that's it. I'm putting it out there. I hope you have a fantastic day and a great weekend. And I'll see you next week. Monday will be my next video. So if there's anything you want me to dive into, let me know in the comments.